All right. Good morning, Facebook family. Good morning, Gram family. Good morning to all of you from wherever in God's earth you're joining us from. It is a pleasure to have you with us today on your Saturday online program. My name is Regina Askia Williams. I'm a New York based family nurse practitioner. And as usual, you are welcome to a high impact Saturday. Today, we're going to be talking to two gurus and a celebrity chef. Okay. It's great to have you with us. Now, the condition or the situation going on in America right now is a very sad situation. We're going to comment on that, and then we're going to comment on that with Professor Moghalu, and then segue into why it is imperative that we all, as Africans and Africans in the diaspora, do something to rebuild the continent. Okay, without much ado, I would like to welcome Professor Kingsley Moghalu into the studio with us. Professor Kingsley Moghalu, good morning. Welcome to
Thank you.
our online program. This is the Office of the Citizen, and we're glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Regina. I'm very pleased to be with you in the Office of the Citizen.
Thank you for taking out the time. As you are aware, it's a very sad situation going on across America right now. There's
Yes.
racial tensions, there's riots, and everything that stemmed from the images we saw when a cop put his knee on the neck of a citizen, so much so that the person lost their lives at the hands of the cop who claimed he was trying to maintain the peace. These stories have been repeated so often across the nation that it is time that we all, in one way or the other, must do something about it. Can you make a few comments on that situation, please?
Well, Regina, I grieve and mourn with the family of George Floyd,
Mm-hmm.
and all the other families of Black Americans in America who have been affected by police brutality and violence, extrajudicial killings, which have become very rampant in this country over the past 30 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clear that racism is America's original sin,
Yeah.
and this country has not yet gotten over it. It's
Yeah.
very clear that the lives of Black people in America do not matter to law enforcement as much as the lives of, say, white people. And that's wrong. And I am glad that increasingly many people, whether Blacks or whites or Asians, are beginning to realize this and to speak out. I was very pleased to see in the protests a lot of white people
Yeah.
were participating in these protests.
Mm-hmm.
And that shows you that anybody who's reasonable can see that something is terribly wrong with the system of criminal justice in America. So I hope that
Yeah.
the political leaders, President Trump, and political leaders across the other spectrum, part of the spectrum, the Democratic Party as well, will be able to work together to bring accountability for Black lives in America.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
reform of the police is really overdue.
Yes, you speak very authoritatively. Do you live in America? Can we know a little bit about you? We all know you as Professor Kingsley Moghalu, who contested in the just concluded presidential elections in Nigeria. But I know that you're also a professor in America. Can we know a little bit more about your background?
Well, thank you. I mean, before my advent into politics, and even up till now, I remain a core professional leader around the world. I was deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria from 2009 to 2014, and I led the implementation of extensive reforms that stabilized the Nigerian financial system after the global financial crisis of 2008. No bank failed, no Nigerian lost a kobo. This was unlike the 1990s failed bank crisis. I have spent most of my professional career in the United Nations. I worked in the UN for 17 years, from entry level officer to the highest career rank in the organization, serving at duty stations in New York, the headquarters, in Cambodia, in Croatia, in Tanzania and Rwanda, and in Switzerland.
Wow.
More recently, after my time at the central bank, I was appointed professor of practice in international business and public policy at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts. Where I am also currently affiliated as a senior fellow. And right now, I'm the president of Sogato Strategies, a business strategy, global strategy, and risk consulting firm. So this is basically who I am. I also, last but not the least, I'm the proud husband of Mary Ann Moghalu, my lovely wife, and
Yes.
we have 4 children.
Yes, fantastic, fantastic resume. Fantastic resume. There is no reason why Nigeria would not want to harvest from your depth of knowledge. We would like to ask you why you chose to participate in the Nigerian presidential election. What beliefs or what motivated you to participate in that election?
Well, thank you. I felt that Nigeria, it's very clear that after 20 years of democracy, Nigeria is not where it should be. And I decided to move away from my comfort zone. I have had a very successful life and a very successful career, so I don't need office for the same reason that a lot of politicians in Nigeria seem to need it, which is to make money or just to answer a title. But I just felt that the political class had not been as successful as we had all hoped as citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And that even though I had attained very high ranks in the technocratic economic management sphere in Nigeria, that the ultimate decisions are taken by political leaders. No country can make progress beyond the level of the capacity of its elected ultimate political leader and the leadership class more broadly, let's say the president, but also the National Assembly, and so on and so forth. So therefore, I decided to go into politics to offer a different and new vision away from the divisions of ethnicity and tribe and creed and race and tongue, to offer a unifying vision for Nigeria around which we can all agree and move forward and make progress and achieve our potential. I decided to offer a vision of economic transformation, not just worshiping the small god of oil, which has kept us poor. Every few years we have a recession or the oil price crashes, and Nigeria is in a mess. So these were the reasons I decided to offer myself. So it was a very sacrificial and activity. I spent almost all my personal savings in that process. So, but no regrets at all.
Okay. So, do you think Nigeria at this point was ready to receive what you had to offer? Because you have to be able to gauge a people's mindset, a people's situation and condition, and how to understand and interpret their situation. I'm not sure Nigerians were ready for all these good things that you brought to the table. How do you propose that we could bridge that gap? Because those of us who want to contribute to building the nation would look at somebody like you and say, somebody like Moghalu could not make it up there to be able to share his wealth of knowledge. What chances do we have? So could you speak to us in terms of, are Nigerians ready to accept what we bring to the table? How can we make Nigerians or encourage Nigerians to step out and embrace what we bring to the table?
Well, thank you, Regina. There are many good Nigerians like yourself, myself, and so many others who have a lot to offer our country. But unfortunately, as you said, the citizens of Nigeria are not ready, and they were not ready in 2019. They were not ready for several reasons. First of all, they've been systematically and consistently disempowered by the political class because it serves the interest of the political class to keep them disempowered. So the citizen in Nigeria does not know his or her own, best interest, or even if he or she knows it, seems powerless to be able to fight and push for it. They've been educated to believe in the big political structures like the PDP and the APC. And so they cannot operate in terms of voting beyond that paradigm. Poverty is also a factor. Most Nigerians are poor. The poverty rate in the country is very high. And, so the politicians use this to bribe voters, give them little stipends to vote for them. And so if you come as a candidate with a lot of vision and a lot of capacity, but you're not distributing 1,000 naira to poor people so they can live for today, but they don't think about the next 4 years, then you're not going to be able to get their vote to the extent that you can become, say, the president. So these were the reasons. But now going forward,
yes,
I think what we need in Nigeria is two things.
Yes.
Number one is fundamental electoral reforms. The electoral system is rigged, completely rigged for certain outcomes.
Yeah.
The votes that were announced for me were a joke. I know, because I know that, thousands of my votes were stolen. I did not have more votes than President Buhari. I did not have more votes than Atiku Abubakar, but I know that the votes that were announced officially for me were a fraction of the actual number of votes that my candidacy received. So electoral reform is very important so that our votes can count, so that citizens can be empowered to express themselves. So I also want to say something. Because of this empowerment that a lot of our citizens had, they felt that many of them recognized that, I won the presidential debate hands down. I don't mean to be modest, but everybody in Nigeria agreed that I won the presidential debate by a long mile. But they can see these things, many people, but they said to themselves, if we vote for him, it's a wasted vote because he won't win.
Exactly.
So I want to address this issue of the wasted vote, the mentality that has been brained into our people. They don't understand that the more you vote, you should vote for what you believe should, the candidate you believe should win. Don't candidate you think will win, even if you don't believe in that candidate, because they want to be part of a bandwagon. It's a psychological thing. I want to be part of the winners. So they join a bandwagon to nowhere, essentially.
Okay.
They're full of regrets, like today. Everybody's complaining in the country.
Yes. Okay, Professor Moghalu, before, maybe you didn't know this, but there was a firestorm on this timeline during the 2018 presidential elections. Because first we were all supporting you, encouraging you, and all that. And then we recognized along the way that the process, had been like showcasing, like you say, APC and PDP. And then there were certain things we were praying to happen to make sure that you would, be in the forefront. And when those things didn't happen, some of us were torn, besides, staying where we were and getting articulated. And, but then I want to ask you, when you recognize that the powers that be were not going to allow you go on to Aso Rock, why was it not possible to form a coalition and get a consensus candidate? Because so many Nigerians were behind you, behind the young people like Showore and Duro Toye. So many young people were supporting you. And if there was a coalition of you three, I don't think that any force would have been able to fail that. So my question is, what happened to the coalition candidate? What happened to the consensus?
Well, first of all, let me tell you that Nigeria is a very interesting place.
Yes.
We should be, even for the alternative forces, which I represented in 2019 and others were part of, we should be pushing forward for the candidate who is best qualified, best prepared, has the best vision, and demonstrated capacity to be president. The fact that you shout Aluta Continua is good, but doesn't qualify you to be president of Nigeria.
Exactly.
So I have the credentials. I have the track record demonstrated in economic leadership, in international relations, in nation building. The presidency is not moi moi.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a joke. It's not a picnic, you know. So the fact that you are young, while that is important, does not automatically qualify you to be president. So even among the group of alternative candidates, it was very clear to everybody that my candidacy was stronger than many others. It was also clear that I was the candidate that the establishment was afraid of all the other alternatives, because I'm the one that they did the most to stop. If you see what I'm saying. Yes. Yeah. You know, towards the election, massive fake news information was put out against me by the PDP. Everybody in the southern part of the country was made to believe that I had stepped down and endorsed Atiku Abubakar, which wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
In the north, there was a fake news campaign that I had stepped down and endorsed Buhari, which wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
So if both sides seemed to be doing a lot to stop me, it showed you why wouldn't the other candidates that were the younger group, why wouldn't they back someone like myself? For you to have a coalition like this, you know, the people have to agree.
Okay.
Agree, there's nothing you can do. And people have an individual right to pursue their aspirations and, you know, to try to actualize them. So I don't, you know, say that automatically they all should step down for me. But this is something that should have been discussed. Instead, some people started trying to be very manipulative and to rig a process that was met with outrage when the result came, because it was clear it was manipulated.
Oh.
And yes, and so these were some of the problems. I found out from my experience that a lot of the so-called younger people, they are not much different from the old politicians we complain about. Some of them will go behind you and say, oh, well, he's wonderful, he's great, but he can't be president because he's an Igbo man.
Exactly.
They'll say it behind your back, but they'll come out and say they're new breed candidates. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I saw, you know, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a very interesting book called What the Dog Saw. If I tell you what I saw in 2019, you know, 2018, 19, it's a very interesting story. But nevertheless, I think, you know, we hope that people continue to improve their minds, to improve their perspective, to be less selfish as we go forward. And I am not right now in politics. I must tell you, I've resigned from partisan politics, at least for the time being, because I think the real issue is to focus on electoral reform. Because without reforming that electoral system, it doesn't matter what you do. You come there, the big money and the big parties will rig it. Yeah. So our effort should really go into this matter of electoral reform. So I convened a group called To Build a Nation. Mm-hmm. And we decided TBAN, www.tobuildanation.org. Mm-hmm. And we are campaigning and advocating for electoral reform. We're working on a petition now, which we've had thousands of people sign. And we've sent it to the National Assembly, and the President of the Senate sent me a personal letter acknowledging my petition, because this is where the battle is. There are two things Nigeria needs. Nigeria needs electoral reform so that its democracy can have meaning.
Yes.
And Nigeria needs constitutional restructuring back to a real federation so that its economy can actually prosper and so that the country can be stable. So that's what we need. We need electoral reform and we need education of voters.
Yes.
Which is what we're doing in TBAN as well, and which is part of what you are doing through this program. So our people need to be educated. Vote for who should win, in your view. Don't vote for who you think will win. Remember, I was endorsed by the Nobel laureate, Professor Wole Soyinka, and he saw all these other candidates, you know, Showore, he saw Durotoye, and he endorsed me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Why do you think that happened? Because he's a wise man who understood that, and he said it, of all the alternative candidates, by a long mile, the person we think is best prepared and capable to be president of Nigeria is Kingsley Moghalu. So the point is that, and Wole Soyinka said, we should think about the creative vote rather than the wasted vote. That the more you vote for what should be, the
Mm-hmm.
more you create the possibility
Mm-hmm.
of that becoming reality in the future. So don't be scared, to waste your vote, but vote to create the future you want for your country. So this is a very important point I thought I should make.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, T-Ban, right? How much power does T-Ban actually have? How much influence will T-Ban actually have on the Nigerian society? Because in Nigeria, if you don't have power, or if you're not
Yes.
in power, if you're not
Yes.
affiliated to power, you really cannot make let me not say cannot, because things are changing. You
I
will find
understand.
it difficult to make an impact. Why
Yes.
did you not think in terms of maybe accepting an appointment or joining the government in a position where you'll be able to make massive impact with
Yes.
electoral reform? Because I know from the grapevine that you were approached and offered several opportunities. Why did you not accept at least one appointment to be able to be in a position to impact on the electoral changes that, the reforms that you're advocating for now?
Well, first of all, let me be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
I was in politics and I ran for president with a vision. And I want to tell you that, in a sense, I won the presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
Today in Nigeria, everybody will tell you, many people will tell you, that Kingsley Moghalu's candidacy showed us what a president should be in
Mm-hmm.
terms of preparation, in terms of vision, in terms of the ability to present ideas in a way we can understand and be inspired by. So that is a strategic victory. There are many kinds of victories in politics. You don't always win everything at the first time. You can win a strategic victory, somebody else may win at the ballot box.
Mm-hmm.
And sometime in the future, you may now win at the ballot box. President Buhari ran for president 4 times. Let's not forget.
Okay.
And he was running on the platform of big parties, not even the kind of small party that I ran on. So we forget that. Now, appointments. I'm not looking for a job. I was not in politics for the reason a lot of people, I want to go and get an appointment and make some money and this. If you are not in certain positions in Nigeria, it's very difficult for you to make a systemic impact in
Yeah.
terms of public office. I have been a deputy governor of the central bank, and I and my colleagues made massive systemic impact because we controlled a part of the economy, the monetary system, the financial system, the banking system, the payments system, and we reformed all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we stabilized the banks. No bank failed. No Nigerian lost one kobo of their savings in any of the banks that were weak because of the crisis. I led the team that introduced the bank verification number, the BVN, which everybody in Nigeria celebrates today.
Mm-hmm.
That's because that was a unique position,
Mm-hmm.
and we made impact in it. If I wasn't going to be in that kind of role, I'm not looking for an appointment just for the sake of an appointment. Like I said, I'm a very fulfilled person and I'm a very accomplished person. I don't mean to be immodest. So I'm not looking for Nigerian political titles. No, I'm looking to make a contribution that makes a difference.
Yeah.
So if you are offered an appointment in a context where the ultimate political leadership does not believe in what you believe, may not necessarily let you push the kind of ideas that you have been pushing. It's very difficult to make an impact in that way. It may be better for you to stay out and let history take its course. Muhammadu Sanusi, the former Emir of Kano,
Yes.
senior colleague at the central bank,
Mm-hmm.
he said something I find very interesting when he was removed. He said, "You may be on the wrong side of the present.
Mm-hmm.
But if the present is dysfunctional, then you are on the right side of history."
Please, can you say that again, please? Can you say that again?
Yeah. So I said, Sanusi said recently about his removal
Yeah.
as Emir of Kano. and I quote, "You may be on the wrong side of the present.
Okay.
But if the present is dysfunctional, then you are on the right side of history." That's
Okay.
a very
Profound.
profound statement.
Yes, that's profound. Okay, I'm going to be reading
Yeah,
out some
yeah,
questions and comments by our audience. But let me
sure.
ask you something. Now,
Yes,
the people are saying, information I'm getting from our people watching and commenting say that some people think that the removal of Sanusi was to prep him for a 2023 situation, and they guess that Sanusi and you may be planning some kind of elections or competition or something, or to register in the presidency and vice presidency, because there is a massive movement against. There is no massive movement. There is just an ideology in Nigeria that Nigeria is not and will never be ready for an Igbo presidency. All right. So I want you to make a comment on the Igbo presidency situation and why not? Why
yeah,
can't an Igbo man be the president of Nigeria? After all, we had Alex Ekweme he was a vice president many years ago. So
sure.
why can't we have an Igbo person as president? Secondly, there is a comment right here. The Ways Committee on Electoral Reform has not been implemented. Can you speak on that before we continue to what we can do to bring about electoral reform in Nigeria? The Igbo
Thank you.
presidency, the Electoral
Okay.
Reform Committee, yes.
Well, let me first of all tell you that what Nigeria needs more than anything else is a competent and visionary presidency.
Yes.
That's number one. Because you can have an quote unquote Igbo president, quote unquote Yoruba president, quote unquote Northern president. If the person is not competent, if the person is not visionary to be able to unite Nigeria to greatness and to productivity, then it doesn't really matter where the person comes from. And people may get the psychological satisfaction, as happens today, that, oh, my man or this part of the country is the president, but the country is not doing well.
Yes.
So let me make it very clear that that is my vision. I sought to provide capable, visionary leadership to our country. Now, but in terms of belonging, in terms of national unity and cohesion,
exactly.
it's very important that every part of the country, people from every part of the country, should be able, in practice, not in theory. In theory, nothing stops an Igbo person from becoming president. You see what I'm saying? There's nowhere it's written in the Constitution that because you come from the Southeast. But we know that in practice, because of the events of 50-something years ago, because of the Civil War, because of the 1966 coup and counter coup, and the Civil War that followed, it seems that there's an unwritten kind of political tendency to suppress the Igbos of the ethnic Southeast from coming to the highest levels of political power in Nigeria. I mean, several Igbos have held very important positions, including being Senate president and being vice president in Alex Ekweme. 9 years after the Civil War, Alex Ekweme was vice president of Nigeria. I mean, that was astounding in terms of national reconciliation and really beginning to bring the country to heel. But we seem to have regressed, and I would urge Nigerians to open their minds to the fact that our country can never become all it can be if we continue to discriminate against certain parts of it or certain people because they are from certain parts politically. It's just not going to work. Everything shows that Nigerians are very capable, dynamic people, including Igbos. And so I think a lot of the fears that some people entertain are completely misguided. And I think that Nigeria will not have healing, ultimate healing from Nigeria's civil war, and will not become a true nation until someone from the Southeast becomes president of Nigeria. That is when you know that Nigeria has healed. Until then, there's a kind of war still going on, and it's just a wrong use of energy. Let me just put it that way. So I certainly, yeah.
What would you say to those people advocating for Biafra?
Well, I mean, look, we understand why some people are advocating for Biafra. Let's be very honest. It's a cry for justice.
Yes.
Let us understand, some people react and say, oh, why are you talking about Biafra? You cannot just have a country exist for the sake of existence. Peace and stability can only be guaranteed by justice. And so if you're not giving a part of the people justice because of historical events, you should not be surprised if they begin to agitate. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I believe in Nigeria. I believe in the unity of Nigeria, to be very clear. But I believe that unity should be based on justice. It should be based on equity. Everybody should be treated equally. So that is what is happening. So the best way to deal with the agitation for Biafra is to speak to the issues raised by the agitation of Biafra. It is not to dismiss the agitation. Then it means you're not serious or you're not honest.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So we have to deal with ourselves honestly.
Yes.
And address the national question, which is, what does it mean to be a Nigerian?
Exactly. Yes.
What does Nigeria mean to its citizens, whether you're Hausa, Igbo, or Yoruba? What is the basis of Nigerianhood? Is it the fact of our different ethnic and tribal identities, or is it the fact of the political identity of citizenship, which is what I believe? So this is the national question. What should be the structure of Nigeria? I believe Nigeria should be constitutionally restructured and returned to a proper federation because it is the only way Nigeria can work. And we have seen it over the past several years. The economy is going down. The standard of living today is much worse than it was 40 years ago. I mean, so how can a country be working in regression and backwards and be deceiving itself that it is doing well or it's existing? So these are the issues. So that's what I think. I think we need to address the real questions of national unity, the questions of constitutional structure. Because of the current structure, it is a lazy country.
Yeah.
Everybody relies on oil to be shared at the Federal Account Allocation Committee. And that's why we are where we are today, the poverty capital of the world. But if you create a proper federal structure, and I recommend that it should be based on regions.
Yes.
So parts of the country will begin to struggle for themselves. And there will be competition in terms of who is doing better than the other. Like there was competition between the Eastern region, the Western region, the Northern region, a healthy kind of competition. But I believe we also need a visionary national leadership that sets us an ambition, a national ambition that makes us all Nigerians. Above the things that divide us, let there be something important that unites us. The United States is an example. It's a country of many races, and we have issues of racism, which we started this program with, and the shooting of the blacks by the police and so on. But we have had a black president of the United States. Let's not forget that. So there is progress being made. Although these problems remain, this is the sort of thing we should be looking at in Nigeria.
Yes. Okay, let me ask you. T-Ban is set to encourage electoral reform. Okay.
Yes.
Now, electoral reform, will this reform be only for Nigerians, or will we Nigerians in the diaspora have an opportunity to be able to, cast our votes and get our voices heard? I mean, if you go educating everybody, and then there is no opportunity for them to vote properly, or people steal their votes, why don't we consider, what are you going to do to encourage Nigeria to consider electronic voting and absentee voting?
But part of what T-Ban is advocating for is electronic voting, digital voting, and voting by members of the diaspora, Nigerians in diaspora. So it's part of our advocacy. If you go to our website and you read the petition that we sent to the National Assembly, you will see that we asked and we are pushing for voting, the ability of Nigerians who live abroad to be able to vote. Realistically, this will take a lot of changes to make it possible. We are asking for digital voting because that is going to be the most transparent. And I said, and many of our members agree, that it should be digital voting backed by blockchain technology. Why? Because blockchain technology will reduce the prospect of rigging. Electronic voting can be rigged, just like manual voting. But with blockchain technology, it becomes very difficult because the information is spread across multiple centers, and any attempt to manipulate it is visible across the whole spectrum. Do you see what I'm saying? So we are pushing for diaspora voting. Realistically, I'm not sure it will happen by 2023. But our view is that by 2027 elections, the diaspora have to be able to vote. They send more than $20 billion a year back home to Nigeria. They are carrying a lot of households in Nigeria. Why shouldn't they be able to exercise their citizenship rights when Ghanaians and South Africans and people from many other countries are able to get their citizens to vote? So we do believe that there should be diaspora voting. Now, you talked about the question of how influential can T-Ban be, and I want to address that. It's a very important question. The reason why Nigeria is where it is today is because of the lethargy, the apathy, the visionless, the selfishness of Nigeria's elite.
Wow.
No country can make progress without the active engagement politically of the middle class. But the middle class in Nigeria have abdicated.
But yes, do we have a middle class in Nigeria?
They may be small because of the wide scale of poverty, but they exist. And if in their villages where they may be influential, because a lot of poor people depend on them, they say to those people who are looking up to them, we need to move in a certain direction politically. It is time. Many people will listen to them, but the elite don't do that. Instead, they go in with the status quo, make their deals so that they themselves can make a cut from what's going on and go into their house and sleep. Elections will come out, you will never see them. In fact, as the elections are coming, they're all entering planes going abroad.
Oh.
This is the truth. So the middle class in Nigeria needs to wake up.
Okay.
And until they do, and that is why T-Ban, we're modulating our strategy now to target the middle class and to say to the middle class, here's why you must get involved. We cannot leave people who are poor, uneducated, illiterate. Their ability to understand what we are saying is limited.
Yes.
And they're hungry. So we now need, as a middle class, to form a coalition that can now be something in between the political elite and the very poor down there. So we're in the middle. So we can agitate upward and downward. So this is what needs to happen. And many people in the diaspora, of course, belong to the middle class. But you find again that a lot of people in the diaspora are politically apathetic. They've given up, they've turned their back on Nigeria. And they tell you, that place, please, go, Jerry,
It's very sad. It's very sad because when you look at what is happening, it feels like there is no hope. Currently, COVID has hit Nigeria and the structures are falling apart. The healthcare system is under great pressure because they can't really offer what they should be offering. The educational system is out because COVID has shut everything down. Nobody is able to make any type of money. Remember, the informal economists in Nigeria have a lot of people who live from hand to mouth. Now, with the impact of COVID, with the dwindling economy, which was based on oil, Nigeria faces a very dire future. So what is going to happen now? When we look at this, we feel very hopeless about the situation. They have resorted to borrowing. The borrowing is ballooning beyond control. Who's going to pay back? And when they borrow, only a certain part of the country gets the money. Some people don't get the money, but when it comes to paying back, everybody will have to pay back. Who is going to pay back? So these kind of things make people feel very hopeless with the Nigerian nation. Please say a few things on that and why our children, where can we get hope, or how can we make our children hopeful? How can we make the middle class hopeful again in Nigeria, in the Nigerian nation?
Well, let me tell you, as long as we are alive, there is hope. Many countries have gone through cycles of seeming hopelessness. Even the history of China, if you were to read the history of China, you will see that there was a time when they seemed down and out. And even in a century and a half ago, China was humiliated by the British in the Opium Wars, which is where they captured Hong Kong and ruled Hong Kong for about 100 years or 150 years before it was now returned to China, now as a special territory. Now,
Mm.
but I want to tell you that hope is not a strategy. We should have hope, but we should act. There is strength in numbers. If all the hundreds of thousands and millions of Nigerians in the diaspora were to join T-Ban, for example, and begin to say, look, we want something new, we want something different, we want something bold in Nigeria. We want Nigeria to become like where we are. South
Exactly.
Africa, in America, in Ghana, in Russia, in the
Yeah.
UK. It's not people with two heads that built those countries. Many
Yes.
times they're not even as smart as we are, we Nigerians. And you can
Mm.
see that with what Nigerians accomplish out here,
Out here. Yes.
because there is an enabling environment. So
Yes.
it's important that we invest in bringing to leadership in Nigeria the kind of capacity that can help Nigeria to become what these countries out here are, and make a clear home for the diasporans to come back home. Many people in the diaspora are needed back in Nigeria. I was in the diaspora when I was approached and headhunted to become the deputy governor of the central bank, and first I was a bit reluctant, I must tell you. I said, Nigerians, they've come again. But I was told that, no, you have a contribution to make. And when I arrived and took on that role, I saw clearly that I had a contribution to make, and I made it. But that's because the central bank at that time was an institution that was strong and independent. So you have to elect a political leadership that respects the independence of institutions, so that when you bring in the diasporans back home, they can do, their best. I had a strategy for diaspora return. We can go into it at length, but a very clear strategy, because I wrote a book called Build, Innovate, and Grow. I was the only presidential candidate in 2019 that came out with a 400-page book of my vision for Nigeria: leadership and governance, nation building, economic management, foreign affairs, like they do out here. I had a clear vision. Any question you threw up during the campaign, I told you how we're going to deal with it. So Nigerians were surprised by this, but like I said, and many of them were impressed, but, for other factors, some of them, many of them still voted for the status quo. But, it's not necessarily going to remain that way forever. So there is hope, but hope is not a strategy. Organize, don't agonize. Yes, that's my advice to Nigerians, wherever they are. You have the power because you have the numbers, but you have to use your power in a proactive way. Don't vote for who you think will win. Vote for who you think should win. Even if that person doesn't win, the more you do it, the more it builds a momentum. And eventually, that kind of person will win.
All right. So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
In the coalition, when the young people came together, right,
Yes.
with you and the young people, I was really worried. I'm not going to mention names, but I
Yes.
was really worried because from the policy statements put out by different factions, it was glaring that most of the young people who came together in that coalition group did not really know what it took, or did not really have the
Exactly.
experience
Yes.
that is necessary to run a country like Nigeria properly. So
Voila. That's exactly what I was saying.
I
It's
was really scared,
the presidency of Nigeria, and I will be guided in the future by the lessons of all those kinds of
But then
experiences.
again,
Yeah.
if you consider the failure of the of the educational system in Nigeria, and the products of that educational system, and the impact that young people in office in Nigeria have made, it's a crying shame. It's so
That's
below
true.
par. It is
That's
so
true.
below par. So now
Now,
we are encouraging young people to come out and take office, and then we did not equip them with the knowledge and know-how in governance 101. And so when they come in and try to copy what they see, and don't really understand what they're doing, it does not work out well for the country.
yes,
Now,
no, yeah.
your campaign ran on encouraging young people, like really working with young people. Did you take steps to make sure that they understand what is expected of them in terms of good governance?
If you go and talk to any young person, any young man or
Mhm.
woman in Nigeria who believed in my vision and supported me during the electoral cycle, you will find them very different from a lot of others. And that's
Yeah.
because my exercise of leadership made a certain type of impact on them. I showed them the standards that they have to aspire to. I equipped them with the mental or the understanding, the capacity, what governance actually requires, effective governance. It's not just about making noise and shouting on the street, oh, we are youth, we are youth, we are youth. That doesn't achieve anything. I told you that the presidency of Nigeria is not moi moi. You have to be grounded in international relations. You have to be
Yeah.
grounded in economic management. You have to
Yes.
be able to manage Nigeria's diversity. You
Yeah.
have to have the experience of handling certain types of things. So my advice to you, and because I have gone through all those stages, I
Yeah.
felt, without being disrespectful of others,
Mm-hmm.
that if they could come behind me, we could win, and then everybody will get an opportunity to have the kind of experience that will prepare them for the next level.
Exactly.
This was my pitch to some of them,
Okay.
but
Yes.
they didn't buy it because they had their own ambitions, their own interests, and so this is the truth of it. The God honest truth. It was just a fiesta of egos and
Yes.
ambitions, based on very little substance for a lot of them, and that's sad, but that's the truth. Now, sorry, Regina. So I just saw a question somebody asked here.
Okay.
Held a very high position in the Central Bank of Nigeria. Ask him what he did for the country. I don't know whether this questioner joined this program in the beginning. If he had joined, he would have heard all the achievements that we achieved in the central bank and my contribution to those achievements. I don't have to keep repeating myself all the time and explaining, because people have a mindset. Some
Mm-hmm.
people have a mindset that once you've been in government, oh, you must have stolen money, oh, you did
Mm-hmm.
that. No. If I had stolen any money when I was deputy governor of the central bank, you would have heard of it when I was running for president. Why do you think I was able to challenge the system? And there was no story. It's because I did my job, honestly. I didn't take a penny that didn't belong to me. I earned my salary because I was working. It wasn't for free. And it was those savings that I used to run for president. Who does that? I have kids like you and everybody else to pay school fees for. And I use that money to run for president of Nigeria to challenge the system. And some people will still come out and attack you as if they
Yeah.
want you to draw your blood. I risked my life. I risked limb. I risked my resources, my time, everything. So you were not doing Nigerians a favor by doing that. No. But nobody can question my commitment. That is all I say. If you want to try to question my commitment, I will tell you, go and sit in a hole where you belong until you can do what I have done. Don't come
For
and
Nigeria. Yes.
don't come and talk nonsense.
Absolutely. Okay, so I hope to see a time or an effort where T-Ban comes up with a book or a pamphlet on basic governance or governance 101, so that
Sure.
anybody who wants to go into public office would
Yes.
like be guided
Yes.
into what they should study, what they should know,
Yes.
right?
That's
And
a very good suggestion. That's a
know what
very
is
good suggestion.
expected of
Yes,
them.
and we'll be taking that into consideration. Thank you for making that suggestion.
Thank you so very much. It was great having you with us.
Thank you.
What word would you want to say, or would you like to part with for the young people of Nigeria in terms of preparing them for 2023? Because that is going to be another opportunity for us to set Nigeria right. What words do you have to all those people agitating for Biafra? We talked about the pain they are feeling because of a lack of inclusion, a lack of restructuring that will, make them feel included in Nigeria. What words would you say to them? What words would you say to Nigerians in diaspora? You talked about middle class being present, working, upwards and working downwards to include their communities. All right. So can we rehash on those as parting words of advice? I wanted to talk about the economy after COVID, what Nigerians should do
Yes.
to prepare themselves, because after now, it's going to be a lot of suffering. It's going to be a
Yes.
lot of
It's going
poor.
to be a lot of pain. Yeah.
Yes. So if
Yeah.
you can start from post-COVID economics
Yeah.
into a few parting words of advice for our young people. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. We're reading them and we're answering them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Now, when we talk about COVID, COVID is a game changer. We've shown very clearly, it has shown very clearly that our governments in Nigeria do not have the capacity to take care of the people. But it has also shown our people, I hope, that post-COVID, they must take control of their destiny. They have to hold governments far more accountable than they have. You can't have a lockdown and you're not able to give your citizens some palliatives. You can't do that. You know, where is that money that you've been earning from oil? What have you been doing with it? So post-COVID, the system has to change in a very important way. Our people need to demand accountability from government. They need to begin to demand performance far more strongly. They need to be able to exercise their electoral franchise consistently. And they need to look for people with capacity to manage their public affairs. Stop voting just based on tribe, just based on you took money from somebody, or person belongs to PDP, belongs to APC. They have the quote unquote structure. All that is a waste of time. You've done it for 20 years. I don't know what is the result. So I think that we should also prepare and ask our governments, because there are certain things individuals can do, but there are certain things that only the government can do. I think, and I have recommended, that all this money that the federal government is borrowing from the IMF, $3.4 billion, they're looking for another $5.5 billion. They must bring out $500 million to $1 billion of it, as I proposed when I was running for president, and create a massive public-private venture capital fund. It should be run by the private sector. Our government has difficulty managing anything successfully. That's the truth, because of capacity issues. But if they make a partnership with the private sector and ask the private sector to run a venture capital fund based on laid down benchmarks, that venture capital fund will train a lot of unemployed people in the rural area and in the urban slums with skills that are practical: welding, vulcanizer, electrician, you name it, chef, whatever. And after training them, give them equity capital to start new businesses, or give capital to people who don't need that training but have good business ideas already. This is how jobs are created everywhere in the world that is making progress. Venture capital, it matters. And until it is brought into the Nigerian economy on a large scale, it exists, but not on the scale. You know, me, I dream. I am a visionary. And I'm saying, look, we have to do this as a government initiative on a grand scale, not saying that you're doing the social intervention program and you're claiming to be giving people money, 5,000 a month or whatever it is you're doing. That's just for survival. Giving a man fish is not the same thing as teaching a man how to fish. You see what I'm saying? So, it's not creating economic value. You create economic value and create wealth by empowering people to create their own wealth and jobs for other people. So this is my vision post-COVID. And I believe that after COVID, Nigeria must respond to the COVID crisis at a very foundational level. The reliance on oil has to end. And the only way it can end is a new constitutional structure for the country and resource control, so that people can go and be more productive in various parts of Nigeria, rather than sitting down every month and coming to a table to ask for the Federal Account Allocation Committee's share of oil. The age of oil has gone. The worship of the God of small things like oil will get us nowhere. The price will rise to $50 tomorrow, but another day it will crash to 20. Is that a life? Meanwhile, set up a hedging mechanism for the price of oil. Mexico did it, and they got a $6 billion windfall from this oil price crash. When you hedge, it's like an insurance that no matter what, no matter how much the price goes up or goes down, you will receive a certain base level of income. So you may miss some of the profit upwards, but if it crashes to the floor like it crashed recently, your own revenue will not crash to the floor. It will remain, you will get money at that level at which your contract has agreed. So these are the kinds of ideas we need to bring into governance in Nigeria. Imaginative thinking, capacity, modern management techniques. But in Nigeria, we spend all our time talking about religion, tribe, this, that. Oh man, it's tough. But hey, we have to keep pushing forward. It's our country after all, and we have nowhere else. For the youth, I have a parting word. You have to do three things. You have to join structural politics. That is to say, you have to go and join all these big political parties, APC or PDP, or any of the new ones, whichever one, but you must join in large numbers so that you can influence what happens, the outcomes, the nominations that those parties bring up. That's number one. Number two, you must vote. It's no good you make all the noise on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and Snapchat. And when people are voting, you're out on a picnic or you're playing football. But when they call for Big Brother Niger, you are there with your money. You're making somebody in South Africa rich because you're having fun for the moment. And at the end of the day, you come back to complain about your political leaders. And finally, then you can campaign for political office if you have the experience and the vision. So, but with the Not Too Young to Run bill, a lot of young people went straight to wanting to campaign for office, but we are not necessarily grounded or qualified. And then they started complaining about the price of the forms, which is, of course, a valid issue. An election form, it should not cost 20 million or 40 million naira. That's a joke. It tells you that the system is just rigged, So, but you must join structural politics. As members of political parties, you must vote, and then you can run for office. You must educate yourself on transformations and how they have been achieved in countries like China, in South Korea, in Brazil, and so many other places. And we can bring these ideas to the table. So this is why my social media platforms, I use them for educational purposes. Some people will tell you, this is not where the votes are. Why are you wasting your time here? I'm not on social media for your vote. I'm there to educate.
Yes.
But I'm there for. Yeah, that's so that you shine the light and the people will find the way. That's the way I operate. So thank you very much for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. This was a very educational and a very informational interaction. I thank you for taking the time to, educate us and share knowledge with us. And I look forward to more interactions like this, because the more we talk, the more we shine light on the problems, the more we're able to identify areas where we should concentrate efforts to, help ourselves move forward. Thank you so very much. And my best regards, my warmest regards to Marianne and the family. And I thank her for letting you come, because if she didn't allow you,
Thank
you very much.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Okay. All right. Okay. Bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right, people, there you have it. I'm sure you all enjoyed that conversation. And I want to say a big thank you to Professor Moghalu for joining us. And I encourage all of you to learn, all right, educate yourselves, empower yourselves, so that you will come armed with vision and a strategy for if you need to run for office, whatever you need to do to help elevate Nigeria. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and speak with our chef, the winning chef from Superstars 2019. Do I have him in the studio? If I don't have him in the studio, I'll go get him. Why you need to listen to him is because he came up with this unique recipe, anti-COVID recipe. Everybody's asking, what do we eat? What do we do? How do we protect ourselves against, fortify our immune system and protect ourselves from catching COVID or surviving COVID? So I'll be right back with him and we'll talk to him about his special recipe and take it from there. Okay, so give me a few minutes. I'll be right there. Now, there was a trivia going on about some Amazons, right? Anybody who is able to name these women, these two Amazons goes home with a scrub cap, a very necessary part of your PPE if you are in the healthcare sector, okay? The Amazons in question, I will share as soon as I can get them, okay? All right. Do I have my chef? Is my chef with me? Do I have my chef? Tony Abulu, it's good to have you, but you came late. I know you had a question for Professor Moghalu. I will forward your question and then he will give you an answer later, okay? So I am waiting for my chef. What is this? Do I have my chef? If I don't have my chef, I'd like to go on and speak with the doctor. Hello? I would like to go on and speak with Dr. Okwenia, who will be talking with us about cancer, all right? What to look out for in terms of signs and symptoms that will be pointers to the fact of whether you have cancer or not. In recent times, people have been diagnosed with all kinds of things and with the advent of COVID, because this virus predisposes, we can say, immune system, and it predisposes you to all kinds of things like blood clot formations in your system, like scarring of the lung tissue, like development of tumors even. So we are going to talk with the doctor and have him educate us on what to do if we find certain symptoms in our system, okay? So yes, I got your message, Chef. Please click on that link I sent you and join us in the studio, okay? Also, Professor Okwenia, please click on your link so you can come in my studio. All right. Okay. So the doctor will be telling us what to look out for. There are friends of mine who were recently in hospital. I know they will benefit a lot from this conversation. All right. So if you give me a minute, I'll be right back with you in the studio. All right. So stay where you are. I'll be right back with Saturday Online Clinic, where we're going to talk with the doctor and talk with the chef on the COVID menu and signs and symptoms to report if you have any issues. Thank you so very much for joining us today. I'll be right back with you, okay? Thank you.